Hello, 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 you guys. Jenny Carr here. I am so excited that the last 2 days we've found more and more people who are hopping on, joining us in the Freedom from Inflammation Facebook pop-up group. This group is here for 3 weeks, and really, I want to get you guys as much information about inflammation as possible and really help you figure out how to begin to reverse chronic symptoms that you may be experiencing in a way that doesn't feel overwhelming, where you don't feel deprived. Good morning, my beautiful Molly, who's on her way. You guys, Molly McCarthy, who I call Molly Oprah, she's my nickname because I know she's going to be on Oprah, is on her way to go speak at the Spark convention with Rachel O'Rourke and so many of my dear friends. So have fun, Molly, and thank you for joining. Hi, Allison. You guys, I am really, really excited that so many of you have joined. If you have any friends that you know are interested in inflammation or suffering from a chronic symptom that they really want to reverse, maybe feeling overwhelmed and trying to do so, or they just want to feel good, right? Inflammation impacts us in the areas that we are most susceptible to, and it shows up differently for each person. And so my goal is to help each of you in every way possible. What is your reason for showing up here? So if you would just comment in the comments below, what is your reason for showing up? What are you looking to get out of this group? Or I also made a poll. It should be in the post right below or somewhere around this Facebook video. I just want to get a sense of what everyone is looking for so I can tailor this group to make it as value-packed as possible. But really quickly, I do want to talk about inflammation. So often, people know that inflammation is this buzzword, and people know it's not good for us for the most part, right? But they don't really know what it is or how it could be impacting them. So let's just talk really quick. What is the definition of inflammation? There's two different definitions. So we have chronic inflammation. That is the slow, smoldering inflammation in our body that is the root cause of nearly all chronic ailment, condition, and disease. And the word chronic is really important there, okay? If you hardly ever get the flu or a cold and you're knocked down with a flu or a cold, very rarely, that's not chronic. That's an acute virus that hit your body. If you sprain your ankle, or maybe you break a leg and your ankle or leg becomes swollen and inflamed, that is acute inflammation. That is actually inflammation that is supporting the body in its healing process to some degree. But what we are here in this group to talk about is chronic inflammation. And you guys, I really like to interchange the word inflammation and toxins between one another. So inflammation, for lack of a better word, can be swapped out with the word toxins. When we have toxins in the body, it's directly correlated with inflammation. Here's the deal, is that if we have just a little bit of inflammation, of chronic inflammation in the body, if our bodies are healthy, if our immune system is healthy, right, then pretty easily our immune system can take care of that chronic inflammation, and it can heal and it can really thrive. But when the inflammation starts building up, and I'm going to tell you how that happens in just a second, and it continues to build up, and our body, it's more inflammation, it's more toxins than our body can actually process. Hi, Marty, so glad you joined. So when there's more inflammation and toxins in our body than it can actually process, which happens really easily, that's when we begin experiencing chronic symptoms in the body, and it's often due to this inflammation. So the key is to melt this inflammation, to eliminate the chronic inflammation so the body doesn't have so much to process. I like to use the analogy of a mason jar, and I don't have a mason jar with me, so we'll use my water bottle, right? If you imagine this is a water bottle or a mason jar, and this is symbolic of your body, and the water in it is symbolic of the inflammation, the chronic inflammation in your body. Hopefully, most of us are operating with a small amount of chronic inflammation in the body. Inflammation comes from diet, from not enough water, How is this? From not enough water, from too much or not enough exercise, from environmental toxins, that could be bacteria and parasites, but it can also be things like pollution, from stress, and not enough rest. Those are the top 6 things that cause chronic inflammation in the body. And so, as you can imagine, like all of those things day in and day out, for the most part, we're inundated with, right, to some degree. And so if those, I'm trying to make this water bottle so y'all can see, if the inflammation, say we eat something that's inflammatory, one of the top 6 inflammatory foods, we'll just say you have a cookie and there's processed sugar in it, right? Processed sugar is along with alcohol is tied for the #1 most inflammatory thing you can put into your body. And there's swaps we'll be talking about, so don't worry, you can totally have cookies with the right ingredients, but we'll just say you had a traditional Nabisco chocolate chip cookie, right? It's full of processed sugar and toxins and other inflammatory ingredients. But you only had one, so that was cool, right? But then you didn't get enough water into your body, which also causes inflammation, and you had a really stressful day. You were on the go, you ran out of time, and so you stayed up all night trying to finish your to-do list, and so you didn't get very much rest. All of those things cause chronic inflammation. And then the next morning you're exhausted, so what do? You're like, I need a bagel and I need some coffee to perk me up and give me some energy, which if you had coffee with maybe a latte with some cream and a bit of sugar, right, that adds to more inflammation. And so the cycle continues, right? So all of a sudden, because we're having this every day, a bit of inflammation begins to continue add up. So it takes 2 weeks, you guys, for your body to fully process inflammation from the top inflammatory foods: processed sugar, wheat, cow dairy, inflammatory oils, genetically modified foods, and alcohol. 2 weeks. So within this water bottle, right, the symbolic of our body, if during those 2 weeks we're compounding any of the inflammatory foods that we're eating, then it's really easy for that chronic inflammation to build up. And what happens is then the inflammation begins to overflow, and it's when the inflammation is overflowing out of the mason jar or the water bottle analogy, right, overflowing out of our body, that's when those chronic symptoms really start to get louder and louder, and you begin to notice them. Sometimes we're all made up differently genetically, right? Sometimes we have genetic predispositions that make it. There's a gene called MTHFR. It's a gene that it's mutated in about 40% of the population and makes it really difficult for the body to detox properly. Sometimes we have a sluggish liver. Sometimes that gene really can stop the methylation process in the liver. So our liver and kidneys are responsible for processing the majority of inflammation in our body. Toxins can get stuck in the lymphatic system. So there's all kinds of reasons why our body may not be able to consistently process the inflammation that we're eating or creating on a daily basis, and why it overflows. It's different for each person. And when I work with people, we really look to connect how you're feeling with what you're eating and actions, your lifestyle, right? But it's important to know those top 6 inflammatory foods, if you're having them within a 2-week time period, which most of us are, then it's compounding the chronic inflammation. I'm kind of getting ahead of myself because I love talking about all this. But chronic inflammation will show up in the areas you're most susceptible to, okay? So for some of you, and I'm going to do a separate Facebook Live on this, but just to get you guys thinking, right? Just scan the tip of your head to the bottom of your toes, and if you had a magic wand and could have the most perfect, amazing body that was full of energy and vibrancy, and you just felt so darn good, right? What symptoms that you experience, whether they're yelling at you and they're really loud or super subtle, would you want to eliminate? Those symptoms are more than likely chronic symptoms. They're happening, for more than a month or two. And whether it happens every day or not is not important, but over the course of a month or two, they're consistently showing up. Those are the chronic symptoms that are caused from chronic inflammation. And in this group, we're going to be discussing all different ways that we can eliminate that. And a large piece of that starts with diet. I just see that my friend Leah Carver just joined, and we just did a video on biohacking. So if you guys have not checked it out, feel free to go to Jenny Carr Health, and watch the video. And we talk about, like, she has all these different modalities on how to eliminate inflammation from the body. And the last thing we were discussing is, like, what is an access point for you? What's an easy way for you to access self-care, an easy way for you to begin taking care of yourself? And so in this group, our initial access point is with diet, right? How can we shift our diet? How can we take those top 6 inflammatory foods and swap them out for options that taste good, that taste similar, but don't cause inflammation? And how can we do it in a way that's not overwhelming? So what happens is, as the body shifts, right, and you're not having as much inflammation in the body because you're swapping out those really inflammatory ingredients, you feel so good. You're like, ooh, bring it on. I want to exercise more, or I want to meditate more, or maybe take up some of Leah's biohacking. Like, there's all these amazing, I call it magic, that just, this ripple effect of magic that takes place in your life. So that is what we'll be doing. You guys, if there's anyone you know who you think can benefit from this, who has chronic symptoms, health conditions, or just wants to have more energy, some of the most common symptoms that show up in the body in terms of inflammation is just low energy, headaches, chronic. Hi, Michelle. Oh, Michelle is going. You guys, Michelle and Molly are both on their way to Spark Convention. Karen, thanks for showing up. So we're just talking about really common symptoms that show up from inflammation. It's extremely varied, and I'll do a Facebook Live on that specifically. But really common things are just hormonal imbalance, low inflammation, irritability, anxiety, chronic depression, the headaches, just kind of feel like digestive disorder, bloating, just kind of this overall sense of feeling yucky and not really super amazing. So if that is you, or you know someone who experiences that, wants more energy, wants more vitality, wants to feel amazing, reverse those symptoms, please invite them in, and then be sure to